Yeah. Dry, but yes.
I see.
Oh, okay. So, if you want to present it, good. Otherwise,
You go in, you know, when you go.
yeah, it's good. Otherwise, I can speak to the mic.
Well,
I got it. Give it a minute. Yeah, let me go see if I can get a minute.
No, just in case. I mean, make sure that. Worst thing you do want to measure you. Right, exactly. Yeah, worst thing you do is kind of grab them on and you're like, oh, like they.
Yeah, no. Revisit it.
Yeah.
Measure, the check.
Well, the last one they did.
All right.
Yeah. Right. They're not that far.
No problem.
What? All right, he doesn't have anything to say. Yeah, I know. Well, it's because it's the most interesting one in the final session. All right. Okay, welcome to ACME at IETF 106. We are back in our traditional spot of being the very final working group session. Anchor. We're the anchor session. Yeah, there we go. We're the reason why everybody stays the whole week. Okay, I need a Jabber scribe. Thank you, Michael. And we need someone to take minutes. There we go. They can be either, you know, there's probably going to be about, they can be as short as 5 sentences describing what conclusions we come to. They will, of course, all be confirmed on the list. Anyone to volunteer to take minutes? You can just sort of compose. Thank you, Jerome. Okay. Do it on the Etherpad if you want, or just compose a mail message to ACME and then hit send, and then your job is done. Anyone want to make any changes to the agenda? Okay. Status of drafts, target front. Status of drafts we'll go over in a couple slides. Mike, you want to say, you'll maybe say a sentence on the ACME overview thing, right? You guys, you're a co-author on that, right? With Kathleen? Just if anyone wants to say. Well, okay. No, I'm talking about the one with Kathleen, the ACME overview thing that was let to expire.
Oh, sure.
All right. Yeah.
We left it to expire.
Okay, good. There we go. There we go. Okay. There's Alexi, so we'll have talk about the SMIME draft. The TN auth list. I don't see John's not here, and I don't see Mary or anyone else, so we will probably just let that slide. End user client and code signing, and that and the two ACME integration and subdomains will be candidates for adoption. All right, so moved. The agenda is as is. The note, well, yeah, you're probably all tired of seeing us by the end of the week. That's. Pardon me? John is in Meet Echo. Okay, thank you. No, you can't read it, but you've read it all week, so it doesn't matter, right? Remember, we are the. It was a push button on PowerPoint that said make all letter heights the same width. I'm not. I was great. I was like looking for, one of those fuzz out options, and I didn't see it, so I just. Yeah. The weird thing about this is if you look at the end of the third line where it says carefully, that's a period, not an L, that it's stretched out to the same height as all the other letters. Okay. Yeah, we'll move on. Okay, note well continued. There we go. All right, document status. These are the ones that are done. Draft ACME CAA was in the queue. It was published 3 days ago. So cool. ACME IP address challenges. in the queue, TLS ALPN in the queue, and ACME Star, which is sort of the first of two of the short-term certificate stuff, is also in the queue. Document status in progress. So we have agenda items and slides for the first three. Agenda items for the S-MIME. John is in meet echo. Maybe he'll say something. Yaron, you want to just come to the mic since I didn't get the slide loaded and say what's going on? You can come up here.
Yaron Schiffer, we haven't published a Rev since last IETF. We did meet with people from CDNI, so we have better understanding of that use case. And the next, the next big thing on the draft right now is a way for the identity owner to signal a CSR template to the named delegation clients so that the NDC can actually generate a CSR per policy.
Any questions? How many people have read this draft? All right. How many people have interest in the STAR technology? Okay, about half dozen almost. All right. Thanks. So it'll be on the agenda for Vancouver. Great. Okay. Document status, 3 drafts on the agenda to consider for adoption. And that's it for the chair slides. Oh, John.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to say we did submit new versions of the both of the 2 ACME drafts related to the ongoing STIR work. The good news is we're now getting to the point actually where the STIR CAs are imminently going to deploy. It's the goal, at least in America, that there will be initial shaken CAs in the December timeframe, actually, which is pretty cool. Whether ACME integration will be part of that initial phase of it, we're not quite sure yet. We think probably more at the end of January, we'll have some better visibility into exactly when that is going to get factored into the way that practically these certificates get issued. I think it's still everyone's long-term plan. It's still written into all the ATA specs, but as with many of these kinds of things, there's like a tremendous interest in just getting something out now that is signing calls and working. So, I mean, I think my intuition on these is we've submitted these versions. I think they're probably stable. I would still hold them though for another cycle, I think, just because I kind of want to see what is going to happen and what ATIS is going to end up correcting or not as, you know, we do the initial rollout of these things. And so I would say let's see these again in Vancouver. I doubt they'll be any different, but they might be.
Okay, so we'll change the timeline from the end of this year to just after Vancouver, right? Hold it for 4 months.
I mean,
okay.
I see no reason to last call it until we, you know, get at least this initial deployment out of the way, and we know that since, I mean, you know, there's CPs and stuff already out there. It's like let's just see what happens for a bit, but let's target that we probably could like push these and have these done around Vancouver. Okay, great. Mr. AD, you fine with that? Okay, cool. All right. Cool. Thank you, John. No more spam on your cell phone. No more caller ID spoofing on your cell phone. How about that? More life. All right. Cool. Oh, yeah. All right. Kathleen, you want to talk to the ACME client draft? Oh, actually, wait a minute. No, let's, yeah. I jumped, I messed the agenda up. So you can talk now, Kathleen, so you can get to bed earlier.
Okay, I'm in the queue. Okay, great. Hi. So I updated the ACME client draft, which essentially establishes additional challenge types that can be used for users with previously issued credentials. And if you just go to the next slide, the changes from the previous meeting is that 2 challenge types were added from Thomas Peterson's review. Text was added for EV certificates from Tim's review. And let's see. I removed this section, which was just legacy on device certificates after Andre's review, and a bunch of points from Deb's review. So there's been a fair amount of activity on it. And I'd love to know if there's more interest in if this is ready for working group adoption or interest in that.
Okay, how many people have read the document? A smattering, okay. Any comments on in favor of or not in favor of adoption? All right.
Hi, Leif Johansson. So generally in favor, we do similar things internally for enterprise CAs. I'm sure there's stuff still missing here, but as a starting point, yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll take a preliminary hum here, hum now. So it'll be in favor of adoption, opposed, no decision. So all those in favor of adoption, please hum now. All those opposed? All those undecided? Seemed clearly in favor.
Yeah, I heard the most around in favor, no one against, and a little bit with for the third option. So,
Okay, so I'll send a note to the list to confirm that, and sometime shortly after Thanksgiving, Kathleen, resubmit as a formal document, assuming nothing comes up.
Great, thank you. And more reviews are appreciated.
Yep. Okay. One of these days, I'll figure out the way the scroll works. All right. Look. Oh, I should just do this. Right? Yeah. Now. You want the?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'll do a very quick update on SMIME. It only works.
Doesn't work? Okay, fine.
So yeah, it's Friday. I'm not going to bore you with all the changes. I think all the email related decisions are made at this point about format, and specific examples were updated. There is one open issue about using DKIM and what needs to be signed to prevent people inserting falsified header fields into challenges and responses. I think I know what to do about this. At this point, I think because this document requires expertise from like SMIME people, as well as ACME people, as well as pure email people, I think it's ready for working group last call as is, knowing that there is one issue that I will fix. In particular, if people can have a look at security considerations, that would be much appreciated. And I will try to reach out to, with Russ permission, to LAMP's working group for SMIME expertise, and to also, I think, IETF SMTP, where email people congregate, to ask for specific feedback on whether it's sensible.
Okay. Okay. How many people use email? All right. How many of those with your hands up have read? Yes, it was a leading question. How many of you have read the document? Thank you, Russ. Okay. What we'll do, I mean, the timetable was, before Vancouver or in Vancouver. So we'll do a last call. We'll issue a last call after the holidays, early, January.
Okay.
and then maybe be able to progress it.
Even if you want early, it's up to you. If you want after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, then I'll catch up.
No, why don't we do it in January? Enjoy your
Okay.
holidays.
Fine.
We'll do it in January. Working group last call with the intent to advance.
Right. In the meantime, I can actually reach out to people before that, so that's fine.
Awesome.
That's probably so.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
Owen, which one you want to talk about first? Pardon me? The other one first. Okay. One last. Nope, the battery's dead, so just tell me when you.
Okay, so this is a new draft that was split out from the ACME integrations draft based on feedback last time around. So what this does is, what the ACME specification allows you to do is it allows, based on CA policy, it allows an ACME client to prove domain ownership of a parent domain, and then allows the client to register and obtain certs for all the subdomains without having to do an explicit proof of ownership for all of the subdomains. So ACME does allow this, and what this draft does is just specify that behavior. Next slide. Okay, and this is just it's a summary of what the shape of what the flow looks like. On the left-hand side, we see step one, an ACME client is doing pre-authorization of a parent's domain. The example I've given here is domain.com. It's just using standard DNS text authorization for to prove it owns the parent domain. And on the right-hand side, the client is placing an order for a subdomain off that parent domain. And what's not illustrated here, but what is possible and allowed, is the client can place new order requests for multiple different client certs off that subdomain without having to do an explicit authorization for each one of those subdomains. Okay, next slide. So when I talked about this last time around, we said there was 0 changes required to baseline ACME to support this, but when we had read the text of ACME in detail, we found there is 1 substantive change, there's 1 errata, and there's 1 minor addition in subdomains compared with baseline ACME. Next slide. So what the substantive change is about new authorization handling. And I'm quoting exactly what the baseline ACME spec says here. For new authorization handling, the identifier and the authorization object must exactly match that in the new authorization request. And what ACME for subdomains changes is that the identifier and the authorization object matches that of the parent's domain, even if the subdomain is specified in the new authorization request, which makes perfect sense for this use case. But that's the only substantive change to the text in RFC 8555. That's the only one. Next slide. Or any questions?
Any clarifying questions, comments, concerns about this substantive change? I assume that means if we adopt this, this would go as an updates 8555, right? Fair. Okay.
So there's 1 minor change. It's an errata that I've raised. It's fixing up 200 response where appropriate. Currently, RFC 855, the text mandates a 201 response to all new WhatSaid requests, and clearly that doesn't make sense if a client issues the same new WhatSaid request twice, and a new WhatSaid request, or the object already exists. So that's what ACME subdomains does, is if the authorization already exists, it recommends returning a 200 OK instead of a 201. So there is an errata opened against 8555 to clean that up, but it makes perfect sense. It doesn't seem particularly controversial.
Rob Stradling did that errata, right? Was it the guy from Commodore who did the? Doesn't matter. Okay, never mind.
There's one minor addition, which is a new directory metadata field where a server can advertise whether it supports subdomains or not. Based on feedback I can't remember whether it was on the meters, whether it was private. If there's no field entry, there is no assumed default value. So if the server doesn't specify, then the client doesn't know. That's it. And so that's it. So it's missing security considerations, but Tim has said he will write these. Tim is a co-author. He said he'd write these. We just haven't got around to it yet. And is the working group interested in adopting this work?
Okay, so you okay, Phil? All right, so the standard 2 questions. How many people have read this document? Oh, okay. All right. Typical, are you in favor? Are you not? Are you opposed? Do you not know enough? All those in favor of adoption, please hum now. All those opposed to adoption, please hum now. And all those unsure, please hum now. Sounded like weekly yes.
This is actually a technical question / comment about the document itself. Once you're finished with the hum.
Okay.
I heard in favor.
Yep. We'll confirm on the list.
So, in some respects, this is like a wild card. Not in every respect, but in the respect that that you're sort of authorizing for the parent, but then you're issuing for the child. And I was just hoping you could contrast the security implications of that with a wild card, because the wild card, there's an explicit indicator in the document for in the transaction that you're doing a wild card certificate. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through, but I sort of as I was reading, I was like, huh.
That's a good question. I haven't thought that through yet either.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's certainly not a blocker to acceptance, but it's a blocker we should think about as we move forward with this. That, as I recall, I think I'm a little not of the state of the art, but as I recall, when wildcards were first being done with ACME, there was talk of doing a random challenge for a subdomain, and anyway, worth thinking about as we go forward.
Yeah.
That was Ecker. Michael.
Michael Richardson. Is your concern that the challenges are confused between the two things? Is that the servers won't be sure which one we're trying to authorize? Is that your concern?
I'm not sure what my concern is, if I even have one. Okay. But I guess what I remember it is that obviously there's current ACME, right, has as I said, has a challenge check for the wildcard and one for the non-wildcard. There's an indicator in the messages somewhere, and I'm trying to remember why that's there. And so until I remember why that's there, I'm not sure whether we need something like that here. So I say, I don't think with I think the missing security considerations are a great opportunity to analyze this and fill it in. So I don't think we have to deal with it here, but I just want to flag it.
Yep.
And it actually makes me think that there may be some people that try to use this when they meant to use a wild card, and the opposite, they will try to use a wild card when they should have used this. And so I think that just fits into some applicability, saying, if you're trying to do this, this is not, you're in the wrong room. Go the other way.
Right. Yeah.
So Deb Cooley, NSA. So this is for a specific subdomain, not for all of the subdomains. So if it was a wildcard, it would be for all of the subdomains, right?
Agreed, but my understanding is, so I think there's the issuance piece, there's the verification piece, but as I understand it, this bootstraps a verification for the parent domain into an arbitrary number of issuances for the child domains. And so in that respect, it's like a wild card in that you did one authentication that corresponded somehow to the parent, and now you're getting certificates that for the children. Now the fact they have to get multiple certificates is different. It's different aesthetically, but it still has the property that the client is basically getting authorized for everything to the left of the parent. And in one case, that's a silent. In one case, taking advantage of the authorization for each subdomain requires a transaction, but in another case, it does not. But it's still the same authorization logic. Mm-hmm.
So is it unusual to have a subdomain owned by somebody different than the company? I mean, other than .com. Oh, okay, fine. But we're different heights. It doesn't really work. Is it how different? Yeah, there you go. How unusual is it to have a subdomain where you're not talking under .com, but right. Under something? Well,
no, I mean it's very common. I mean, but I guess the usual assumption in DNS, right, is the parent controls the child, but that doesn't necessarily mean. But as I say, in this context, in this, like I said, in this context, I'm just saying we had a special indicator that said, I'm getting authorization for everything to the left of this. And we did that when we did a wild card. And I'm just saying this, it feels like a wild card in some respect. And so I just want to make sure we don't need a special indicator when you authorize for this as well.
If it's super common, then you need something that says that you're allowed to issue everything to the left as part of it, right? And we don't have it, do we?
So this is DKG. So you can measure roughly how common it is that something like this might be problematic by looking at the public suffix list. So the public suffix list is definitely not short, and it includes lots of instances of, but is not exhaustive, but instances of organizations that have sort of child subdomains that that probably shouldn't involve X509 issuance just because the parent is authorized or because one of the children is authorized. So yes, it's an issue. The authorization is very similar to doing a wildcard. And I wonder, once again, since we failed at debound, there may be some subtle differences between this and actually issuing a wildcard cert itself. And maybe there's another cut we need on the PSL. So it would be good to talk to folks who are working on the public suffix list.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will say it's very heartening to see detailed technical discussions of DNS on Friday afternoon. So.
We're still warm and deprived.
Yeah, that's sure. Okay. So we will we'll confirm on the list and submit sometime after the holidays. Yep. All right. Next.
Okay, and so this one was presented last time around, and subdomains was part of this last time around, but we split it out into the separate draft. So what this does is describes how ACME can be integrated with multiple other search enrollment mechanisms, primarily EST-based ones, which Brusky is based on top of, and TEEP. Next slide. So it documents a few different use cases, ACME integration with EST, ACME integration with Brusky, ACME integration with a variation of Brusky, which is Brusky Default Cloud Registrar, ACME integration with TEEP, and Elliot and I are working on a new draft TEEP update. It shows how ACME can be integrated with this as well. And in fact, we think that ACME doesn't really fit well into baseline TEEP, and ACME needs the TEEP extensions that we've defined in number 5. That's primarily around PKCS10, PKCS7 handling, CSR attribute handling, etc. Next slide. So what's changed? ACME subdomains has been split out into a separate doc. Brusky Cloud Registrar use case has been added, but it's pretty much the same as Brusky from an ACME perspective. Next slide. Okay, so EST and TEEP, those specifications define how the client interacts with the EST or the TEEP server, but they do not specify, it's explicitly out of scope, how the EST or TEEP server interacts with the backend CA. And what this draft does is glue the two together and show how ACME can be used as that integration between either the EST or the TEEP server and the ACME CA. Next. So the slide here, this summarizes what an EST integration could look like. On the left-hand side, we have pre-authorization of a parent domain. So I'm leveraging the subdomain draft here. So on the left-hand side, the EST RA is doing pre-authorization of a parent domain. On the right-hand side, when a client, or it's called a pledge here, when a client or a pledge is doing a simple enroll against the EST RA, the EST RA can turn around and do an ACME integration and get a search issued for a subdomain identifier of that parent domain that's previously authorized. What's missing here, but doesn't really impact this integration per se, but it's documented in the draft but not here, is the client should really be doing a CSR attributes request response first. It's documented in the draft, just not shown in this slide. I don't think I've shown on this slide. Next slide. Yeah, I haven't shown explicitly the TEEP call flow, but the TEEP call flow looks very similar to this, and it's in the draft. Next slide. So what's missing from this again is some security considerations are missing, but this doesn't require any changes whatsoever to EST or TEEP update, and it doesn't require any changes to ACME. It's just information and showing how you stitch the two together. And the integrations do span across 3 working groups, Anima, ACME, and EMU. So we're wondering where this lives. Is there interest in? So the questions for the room is there interest in continuing this work? What do we do next? And if anyone is interested in adopting it, where should we adopt it?
So we have precedent with the TNAuth list that was, heavily developed over by STIR and put here because it was sort of a challenge. Have the other working groups expressed any opinion?
They said, see what ACME says. But both EMU and Anima are interested. So they want to see the work progressing, but don't know where it lives.
So they deferred. If we don't want it, they may take it up because they want to progress it. Is that
EMU said they may take it up if ACME doesn't want it.
Okay. Mike.
Co-author on this and involved in all those working groups. I think that we felt that the things that we're doing were more technically ACME things, and we really will come to your group easier than you'll come to our group to give us input. So we would rather do it here than in our group. That was our feeling at the time.
Okay, I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
The draft in number 5 there, that's required in order to make this work with?
Well,
maybe
I think it'll make the client, the each supplicant, it'll have a cleaner integration with each supplicant. I don't think it's strictly required, but what's missing from TEEP is if the ACME server turns around and says, I'm willing to issue a cert, but just not yet. Your status is, I think the status is pending, or there's no way currently in TEEP for the TEEP server to signal back to the supplicant, retry later. And that is in EST, it's not in TEEP, and that's added in the TEEP update.
So the other users don't need a change to accommodate the pending,
right?
But TEEP just does, it would time out and die or something while we're doing the validation.
TEEP can, there's no explicit way for baseline TEEP to signal to the client that it should retry.
And is this retry in TEEP, does that get a reasonable acceptance in TEEP? Is that likely to, or is this, it hasn't gone to the working group yet?
So draft 5 has not been adopted yet, but there's been nothing controversial said about the enhancements to draft 5 for improving PKCS 10.7 handling, adding the retry mechanism, adding the CSR attributes.
Okay, so there's no block to
No.
doing it. That was the main question.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So hi, Roman Danilio. I may not have be remembering it right, so Joe's going to kind of correct me, but to EMU, I didn't hear the conversation back and forth. So in EMU, there was interest in kind of the work, but we punted the discussion about what to do, which working group we want to do it actually to here.
Okay. All right. Was that a thumbs up? Yeah. Gotcha. Thanks, Joe. Okay, how many people have read the document? A couple. Maybe we need to get a little more discussion before.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need more discussion, especially since there's so many working groups kind of involved
Yeah.
here with the coordination.
So, all right, so let's continue the discussion, and maybe we'll have a target for, getting the adoption by or at Vancouver.
Your Honor, there seems to be a little bit of overlap potentially with Star delegation on the CSR. On the CSR side, maybe we should talk.
Okay. So let's have some discussion of the content and perhaps other, cross-working group integration on the mailing list. And we will reconsider this by the next IETF. And I believe that's the last one.
I'll ask another question.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is the last presentation, but this is something else that came up in EMU. It's currently been discussed in the EMU mailer, not directly related to any of these two presentations. But there's a conversation ongoing in the EMU mailer about documenting clear best practice recommendations to supplicants for how they should check the identity search that an EAP server presents to it. There are various drafts defined in EAP that specify, for example, key usage bits for EAP servers to specify. There's a draft that specifies an other name of an NAI realm that a server can present in its identity search. And of course, there's obviously drafts that specify that a server presents an SRVID as a name in its identity search. And obviously, public CAs will not issue any of those three. So we're just looking in EMU for best practice recommendations for what a supplicant should check, depending on whether it's presented with a private CA certificate or a rooted public CA certificate. And we'd really like somebody from a public CA to help write those recommendations. We think we know what they should be, but we need somebody who actually runs a public CA to help with that. So we're looking for help in EMU with them drafting those best practice recommendations for what a supplicant should do when it is presented with an EAP server identity cert and how it should check the fields in the EAP server identity cert. So we're looking for help.
And did you also discuss it with LAMPS?
Not yet.
Okay.
The order was wrong.
Fair enough. So yeah, LAMPS will also be a good place to bring it up on their mailing list or speak to Russ there to figure out how to do it, because that's where a lot of the CAs hang out.
Deb Kolianis, can you remind me if you had an EKU in mind?
Excuse me?
You did, right? Not server auth? That would be fantastic, by the way. Okay, so you have an EKU in mind, and the problem is commercial CAs won't issue it.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
So it'll be some kind of recommendation along the line of, if you have a private CA, then it might make sense to check these fields.
So-
if you see a public CA being presented, then there's
That's
no
not an
point in checking
EKU
these
though,
fields.
right? So a public CA can't verify the SSID.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
the SSID is not an EKU, it's SAN, right?
Yeah.
I thought you were also talking a little bit, I was hoping anyway, that you would talk about using a different EKU other than server auth.
Well, if the supplicant knows it's presented with a private CA, then it makes sense to check an EKU. But if it knows it's presented with a identity cert that's signed by one of the public CAs, there's absolutely no point in checking for this field. It can only really check for a DNS name, and it's hammering out exactly what the best practice recommendation should be.
Michael here. Deb, I was hoping you were coming to tell us that there were some magic EKUs that public CAs are happy to accept, and we should use one of those. That doesn't sound to be the case, but.
So I do want to point out that I'm not associated with a public CA.
But maybe you just knew everything about all of them. I don't know. So I was hoping you had hidden secret knowledge that you were going to share with us.
Yeah, we won't go into that. Yeah. Right, exactly. Right now I'm only associated with private CAs.
This is Daniel Kahn-Gilmore. I'm just going to repeat what I think I just heard. What I think I just heard is, we don't believe, as the community of technical people who work with these authorization systems, that it is possible to use the web PKI with anything, that the EKU field is meaningful, because we cannot possibly hope to change any of it. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. What we're saying is that, there's a specific EKU for that defines this key is for EAP over LAN.
So there's
Right.
two issues, right? One is the EKU and the other one is the identity. And so the identity they want to put in this is a private, non-verifiable identity, the SSID, right? So that's the big problem from a commercial CA point of view, because if they issue a cert with something in there that they can't validate, they get in trouble and somebody beats up on them, and you probably know who that will be. So
right.
just saying. I've heard it. It's fun. Well, I mean, not really. So that's the first problem. The identity problem, I believe, is the big problem. The little problem is an EKU, and I'd like to see the EKU changed, because I've had, is it? So, but they're not, yeah. It'd be nice if they used it, right? So, and that's a small problem. So that's just, working through the process of getting it, like, you're able to get one of those, right? It's already defined, it's already there. It's just a matter of changing the process so that you can actually get one. The bigger problem is the identity piece.
But say, even if you change the process that you can get one, and it takes X number of years for a public CA to actually issue with a certificate with an EKU saying it's used for EAP over LAN, then what do we tell a supplicant to do now?
So the advantage of the different EKU is that it allows you to identify that the verification process is different from the verification process that's used for the server auth.
Yeah.
And so that way, if a public CA wants to issue something like that, as long as they don't also issue it with the server auth EKU, then they're not violating what they claim they would be doing, right? Which is, we checked for server auth in the following way. Now you've got a separate thing. Yes, you do need to define how you verify the identity there,
Mhm.
but you no longer are worried that someone's going to use one of these certificates in this other context where they shouldn't be allowed to use it. So if we think that CAs can't issue an alternate EKU, then we have really done something terribly wrong, because we've boxed them out of operating in this space, and asking them to use it asking them to use server auth is a mistake, because it puts them back in the soup of having to juggle these different demands that they get from the CAB forum.
So it's not that they can't, it's that they currently don't. So because they currently don't, what do we tell
It's Michael,
them
it's a
to do
chicken and
today,
egg
right?
problem. We're not a big enough market for them to care. So we have to find a way to flow through their existing market mechanism, which sucks. But the alternative is that either we have clients that get our man in the middle, because they're easily, they'll bind to any public name, right? Or we have private CAs that we have to manually configure into clients, which defeats the whole zero, touch point. Right. So we have this thing like, yes, we want to use the technology, as you say, right, but we don't have enough leverage to actually make it happen. So what are we going to do? We're basically wind up, pin 000 again, right? That's what happens if we can't go forward. You know what I mean? Pin 000. Yeah. Okay.
So the space is ugly, right? It's not just CAB forum. It's CAB forum plus it's all the trust org. Right. So it's not like it's CAB forum plus it's Microsoft app. It's all of that, right? You can't.
But, so the fact that we're even having this conversation means that we need to document some guidelines for a supplicant to implement, right?
Right. So go. Yeah, exactly.
So this is Joe Salloway. I think that this is kind of a mess, and I don't know that there's an easy way out. But there is one thing that many years, like 4 or 5 years ago, the Wi-Fi Alliance was working on some Hotspot 2.0 thing, where they did, I believe there is a CA that issues certificates for hotspots, which might be what you want. I don't know, but might be something to look into.
Okay. So I guess we'll bring it to lamps and bring it to the emitters.
This is Leroy from Java. From Europe, is there a chance of public CAs doing anything without CAB forum telling them it's okay?
I'll volunteer somebody from a public CA to answer that question.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, thank you, Owen. Any other business? All right, if you have the blue sheets, bring them up. If you haven't signed, come up to where the blue sheets are. Thank you all. As I said, it was encouraging to see some nice technical discussion, and we'll see you on the lists and in Vancouver. Thank you. Yeah, wait. Yeah, we'll just recycle that sheet. If you have the blue sheets, raise your hand and bring them up, or let Max come to you. It's a clipboard. It's got blue paper on it. You should all know what they look like by this time. Look. Don't make me bring up the note well again. Okay. Thank you.